all getting set, counting down to Oklahoma, Nebraska, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the game of the century. I've got a special guest. Mark Schipper joins me from Fifth Down College Football. Mark is embarking on what he has dubbed the American Odyssey. College football game every single week of the season for the most part. I think there might be one or two weeks where he's not out and about somewhere, but just to give you an idea, he's already been to LSU, UCLA. He was at what was one of the biggest games of last week. It's certainly one of the biggest wins in recent Arkansas football history when the Hogs just laid the smackdown on Texas. And, of course, he's coming to Norman this week for Oklahoma, Nebraska, and the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the game of the century. Mark, good morning, man. How we doing?
I'm doing great, Josh. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be on here talking with you guys.
I'm doing great. Just excited. I strolled around the corner in our Ref Sports Network studios here, saw our countdown clock. We are inside of 4 days now, 3 days and 23 some odd hours and a handful of minutes before Oklahoma, Nebraska. Before we dive into your reaction from some of the games you've already been to, let's start right here. The genesis of this American Odyssey. Fifth Down College Football. What made you want to go on this journey to all of these different college football games this season? I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. The genesis of it is just pure love for college football. Lifelong love. Probably since I was 9 years old, this has been my favorite game. It's not even close. I always said growing up I was going to play college football and then become a writer rather than play professional football. So that's the kind of love I have for the college game. I call it the Odyssey because this sport is so colorful, and it happens in every region of the country, and it happens in different ways. It's our great American folk game. It's local. It's traditional. It's built on, or at least it was, we'll see what TV ends up doing to it, geographical proximity. And it's the most personal of all our games. There's this intense passion, this identifying with your team and your university, your community, your culture. And the nature of college football itself is why I wanted to see all of it up close and in person all over the country.
Mark Schipper is our guest of Fifth Down College Football. You can follow his American Odyssey going to football games every single week on Twitter at Fifth Down College Football. Mark, I'll ask you a couple of times this morning before we get you out of here, but where can folks sign up right off the top for your newsletter so they can get your vlogs going throughout this college football season?
Yeah, the website is the place to do that. Fifth Down, 5th Down CFB for college football. Just drop your email. It's free. I put out a newsletter every week. I'm putting together videos, vlogs, sort of photographs from all my stops, trying to talk to important people and fans and everyone who's there and give people an idea of the experience. And then at the end of the journey, there's going to be a book. The book's going to be a little more substantial. That's going to be not just this travel journey, but a deeper history of college football in each of the spots I'm going to. I've picked out historical rivalries, historical programs, and stadiums as jumping off points for the deeper story about college football in the United States. My premise is that the history and culture of the United States is so interrelated with college football that you cannot tell the full story without talking about college football.
I would have to agree with that, Mark. Yeah, absolutely. You can't tell. In my sports bubble, my sports universe, yeah, you can't tell American history without intertwining college football with it. So,
yeah.
Why Oklahoma, Nebraska, right? I think Oklahoma fans, we here in Norman, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, the state of Oklahoma, we get the importance of this OU-Nebraska rivalry, but what made it one of the stops that you felt you had to include on this journey for yourself?
Yeah, it was a must, and Oklahoma is actually one of the few teams I'll be seeing twice. I'll be at the Red River game as well for Texas, Oklahoma. So Oklahoma is a keystone program in college football history because of who was there, their coaches, their players, their level of success. This game had to be on there because It was a defining rivalry for multiple generations. The Big 8 Conference, which became the Big 12, and college football in the Great Plains. It was for many years Oklahoma and Nebraska. Colorado worked their way in for a while in the 80s and 90s. But OU Nebraska at the end of the year, when you talk about college football tradition, Thanksgiving, conference title on the line, potentially national title on the line. As a young kid, I remember the oranges raining down on the field when the final outcome became secure. So when this rivalry broke up because of television money and conference realignment, I think it was a painful blow to college football and particularly for traditionalists. And I was like a child. I came up in the 90s, but I was like a child traditionalist. I don't know if I was old before my time or what. But I knew when Oklahoma and Nebraska went away, something was lost in college football. So the fact they're going to replay a game of the century, there have been a few of those on its 50th anniversary. This gives me an opportunity to look into some major elements of college football history. And I got to tell you, I'm just flat out excited to get to Norman on a Saturday afternoon and watch a football game.
Well, you picked a good one to come to, Mark. Mark Schipper of Fifth Down College Football is our guest. He is touring the country and vlogging, and his newsletter is free if you want to sign up for that. He'll have a book to basically chronicle this entire journey once it's all said and done. He's here this weekend for Oklahoma, Nebraska. OU, heavy favorite in this game. The game itself opened up Oklahoma a 20.5-point favorite. That number's up a buck and a half from that to 22 points. It doesn't feel like Nebraska should have much of a chance in this game, but you've certainly picked the right one to come to for Norman. I think this is the biggest home game in most everybody's mind. Obviously, these two teams, Mark, they haven't played since the 2010 Big 12 championship game. So the environment itself is going to be incredible in Norman. What do you anticipate from this environment and just from the game itself?
Yeah, I kind of look at things from a bigger context, historical context. The outcomes of any of these individual games don't mean all that much to me in terms of what I'm doing. But when I look at this game, I kind of look at the swings in this rivalry over the years. Oklahoma's been fairly dominant, but Nebraska made up ground at different times. Pre-World War II, Nebraska was very good. And then when Oklahoma fell off after Switzer left and they kind of lost their identity without the wishbone, Nebraska made up ground again in the 90s. So I kind of look at 96, 97 as Oklahoma bottomed out before Bob Stoops arrived. And Nebraska put a couple big beatings on the Sooners. I think 73-21, 96, 69-7, 97. They had no mercy on their old rival. So, I don't know how the game's going to go exactly, but I'm interested to see if Oklahoma really gets rolling against Nebraska, if they're going to keep it rolling and turn it into a big party. A close game would surprise me. So in terms of the atmosphere, I think it's just going to be pure college football. I think people are going to revel in the past. They're going to enjoy the reignition of this rivalry for at least an afternoon. And the outcome of the game, we'll see what happens. A big blowout wouldn't surprise me.
Well, I'm sure you're aware of this, Mark, but the storyline from the summer upset some Oklahoma fans with the powers that be at Nebraska potentially trying to not make this game happen. I know that ruffled some feathers around here. You mentioned 96 and 97. That is always a constant talking point that, hey, when Nebraska was great and winning national championships in the 90s, and, oh, by the way, it was the decade of misery for Oklahoma, there wasn't any mercy shown for OU. So I know there's a lot of people around here that would love to see Oklahoma return the favor, so to speak. What's this journey been like so far for you? Before I get you out of here, a couple more questions. You've been to LSU, UCLA, Texas, Arkansas. Boy, that was a party last weekend in Fayetteville. What were those two games like for you?
It's been the opening 2 weeks to this have been incredible. I couldn't have asked for anything more if I'd been granted wishes by a genie. So I went to school at UCLA, which is why I started at the Rose Bowl. I'm using that game to talk about the history of football in Southern California. I'll be at Notre Dame, USC later, but that's in South Bend. So I went out there just to get into the Rose Bowl and have that as my jumping off point and use the personal nature of my time at UCLA. but it turned into a huge Bruins upset, and the Rose Bowl was rocking. They played California, forgetting the last part, California Love, and the Tupac, the big Tupac Dre song between the third and fourth quarters. The Rose Bowl was just rocking. Massive upset. It was a ton of fun. The LSU fans were great. So that was a big surprise to start the journey. And then Fayetteville was incredible. I really kind of half fell in love with Fayetteville. Really cool people down there, really cool city. And then they just put a butt kicking on the Longhorns. You talk about a dominant running game, a defense that crushed everything Texas wanted to do. And the fans were just lit up all night. I sat there as the game ended and watched thousands of students pour onto the field. They played their music and sang their songs and danced around. And it was one of those magical nights of college football. It was every reason I'm taking this journey was what happened in Fayetteville. The Longhorns flags hung upside down, and just the energy and passion there. It was a really memorable weekend in Fayetteville.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it looked like a party. Those two, that's an old rivalry, Southwest Conference rivalry restored for those two programs. So I can imagine there were plenty of folks down there in Arkansas that didn't have any problems with knocking Texas around a little bit. Mark, hey, appreciate you hopping on the show this morning. Good luck with the entirety of the rest of your journey here. You're going to some great spots in college football. OU Nebraska this weekend. You'll be at the Red River Showdown, OU Texas, coming up later on this season. One more time before I get you out of here, and by the way, don't be a stranger either. Feel free to look me up on Saturday. I'll be hanging out somewhere in the South End Zone if you want to come say hello, or to our pregame show at Balfour of Norman and O'Connell's afterwards for the postgame show. But one final time before we get you out of here, where can folks follow your journey on Twitter and get your newsletter and keep in touch for the upcoming book, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate all that, Josh. The website is the spot to go. So it's www.5thdown.cfb.com. All you have to do is drop off your email. You'll be on the newsletter list. You can follow this journey and the progress of the book and everything that's going on. And then across all social media channels, major ones, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I encourage everyone to come over and chat with me. I'll respond to at least half friendly messages, and I look forward to meeting everyone. It's one of the best parts about being out across America.
Mark, you're the man. I appreciate you hopping on this morning, buddy. Safe travels to Norman. You get in on Thursday, right?
Yes, sir. Thursday morning.
Well, safe travels, and we'll look forward to bumping into one another coming up this weekend for a big one.
Yes, sir, Josh. I love talking to college football people, so thank you for having me on. It's much appreciated.
Okay, have a good one, buddy. See ya.
Yes, sir. Take care.
Mark Schipper, he is embarking on the American Odyssey. Follow his journey, Fifth Down College Football. That's the easy way on Twitter or that website as well.